know a couple of years ago, I'm not sure of the actual facts, but I know a couple of years ago around College Green, there was an allowance to stop, I think, traffic going by from the Trinity College and that. And after a short period, it stopped because retailers weren't getting the footfall they wanted. So I was wondering if you've had any challenges with this and what you've been talking about with reducing the traffic in the city centre.
Did you hear that okay?
Just about. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
No, you need one of these. There you go. If you could speak directly into the microphone, that'd be great.
I understood it was something in relation to College Green and about objection to...
Yeah, no, basically a couple of years ago, I think maybe more than 2 or 3 years ago, there was a process there to stop traffic going around the College Green area for a period. Yeah. And it came to an end when retailers were giving out about the lack of footfall. I was just wondering if you had any kind of similar experience or challenges in what you've been doing.
Well, my answer to that would be, I mean, if we think about Grafton Street, when Grafton Street was pedestrianised, there was massive objection. But the truth is that pedestrianisation actually is good for business because people are moving at a slower pace and they will spend more time in shops. So it's like behaviour change with people. Initially there's a strong objection, but over time I think the penny drops that it is good for business as well. I think similarly there was objection to the bus gate, and it has been a success. There was objections probably to bus lanes when they came in first, because goodness gracious, if we put a bus lane in, we won't be able to get our traffic through the city, but bus lanes are phenomenally successful.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Yeah, in the back there.
This is for Mary McConvey and about Dublin Airport. Does the ACA account for emissions caused by the travelling to and from the airport from people who are visiting? And also, how do you intend to kind of like counteract this?
Can you hear me? Yeah. No, that's not included in the current definition of what is covered by the footprint of the airport. That would be in the next phase. With most accreditation programs, what's covered initially is what you directly create through your own activities. So the people coming to and fro the airport on their business are not actively included. However, it is something in terms of our own mobility strategy. One of the things that we are looking at and facilitating is public transport access, etc. So though it isn't included in the definition of the footprint, it is something which we're looking at as part of the next phase of moving to a model where we influence other people as well as trying to minimise the emissions that we directly create ourselves. That answers your question.
Yeah, thank you.
Any more questions? 2 here, one in the back there. Oh, sorry, yeah, one there.
This is actually for David. Did you think that the Dublin Bike Scheme done enough when it was implemented, or do you think that they could have advertised it a lot better than they actually did?
Absolutely, yeah. I think it's a wonderfully successful scheme. Well, it has been. It's shown to be a huge success. It's one of the most successful internationally. Each bike, I think, is used between 10 and 11 times per day. Well, I think its biggest success actually has been to change the perception of cycling in Dublin. So I think people have started to realise. I think there's been 2 initiatives. I think the Dublin Bikes Initiative and also the Tax Saver Scheme. Has been very, very successful because it started to, you know, maybe in Dublin 10, 15 years ago, you would have seen a lot of students on bikes, or typically. So now you're starting to see professionals and middle-aged, middle-class people on the bike as well, and it's made cycling culture more acceptable, and I think that's hugely good. The City Council are acknowledging this. They want to increase it tenfold, right up to here, right up to DCU and down to UCD, and they've got a very good, well-thought-out strategy for doing that. You can actually download it. So they have to do it in phases in sectors around the city. They're going to head out west towards Houston Station first. But yeah, I'd congratulate it. I think it's been a very successful scheme.
Okay. There were a couple of questions here. One there. Wow.
I have a question for Una about the behavioural change in the car-centric environment. Just in relation to how the public transport has gone recently, with the likes of the Lewis not accessing certain areas and the decline in the Dublin bus routes. Is there any talks with regards to improving the Dublin bus service? Because I think some of the routes when the routes were taken away, it encouraged people to use cars more as opposed to taking public transport.
Well, first I'd like to say that I'm not here representing Dublin Bus, despite the fact that I am on the board. But from a personal point of view, I think the rationalisation of the bus system is phenomenally better than it was before. And you now have high-frequency buses on key bus corridors, which is a much more reliable service than, you know, if you're standing waiting for your bus and it has it's entrailed out, you know, through going right to the door of where people are living. It's not always best overall for the efficiency of the system. So, you know, people will, on average, internationally walk 800 metres to a bus stop and 1,000 metres to a rail station. So that's what you're talking about in terms of what people will do.
I have a question for David. What do you think is going to push a city such as Dublin towards Nantes or Zurich? I mean, how do you get the buy-in from Dublin City Council? Like, a lot of the time, City Council, oh, that's a great idea, it's sustainable, it'll look great on, you know, advertising for the city, but what's going to push Dublin to actually do that?
Okay, I would say lots of small incremental measures are really, really important. I think that's the way to actually move transport forward. Usually when transport hits the news, it's because of some big mega project and people, you know, why is this taking 20, 25 years? That's not unusual in Ireland or any country. The most successful schemes, and it's one of the beauties of public transport and active travel, is that you can actually do small measures. Now, I know that the City Council, they probably have about 5 design projects around the city. They're all cycling projects. So I think they really have the message there. And they're starting to do very, very well. I was critical. I mentioned a quote from an article, and it was in response to the capital expenditure announcement early last year. And I was critical that the government was only spending 65 million on active travel, when we know that the return on investment to the economy, we're in a period where we need economic development, is much, much higher from active travel. And I'm even more disappointed. A month or two ago, and there was a stimulus announcement, 2.2 billion, all on road schemes. I've no doubt that they're very badly needed road schemes, but that is not where we get the best return on investment. We get it from active travel and public transport, and you can do these things incrementally, so it's relatively pain-free. You don't have to jam up the city for 3 or 4 years, which is, you know, that's a risky thing to do.
Anne-Lee.
Thank you. Great session. I had a question relating to, in transport, I was thinking about comparison to recycling. You know, transport is one of the aspects in our society that connects all of us, no pun intended, you know, and driving improvement in how we live and learn and work. And, you know, recycling, when you talk to people, it's a lot about, you know, kids coming home and talking to their parents about doing more of recycling at home, and then, you know, the parents start to up the activity and even take it at home. So I had a question about, in terms of education, and its question is for, you know, any one of the panel members, is, you know, what are the things that we need to do, we need to think about, we need to do in the context of education, involving not just the higher education, but also, you know, educating the younger kids?
I think someone alluded to it earlier, that actually in Ireland there's the Green Schools programme, and actually a lot of the pressure and push is actually coming from the children. to the adults in terms of their sustainable behaviour. So that's a very successful programme with several pillars, which includes the Green Schools Travel Programme. And I have a 9-year-old myself, and I often get him coming home and asking me challenging questions about how I behave, whether it's from a transport perspective or from a waste and so on, big questions about the world. So my view is that currently it's how our children are thinking about this is not so much a massive problem. At least that will be my experience. I don't know if anybody else wants to comment on that who has children.
Yeah, I certainly, I think from my own perspective as well, and this is a personal perspective rather than anything else, I think there's a huge amount of effort going into focusing children's attention on what we might call sustainability messages at school. I do think, though, that it needs to be more policy-driven, and I think while there have been some initiatives in that regard, I think these need to be reinforced, because there is still a huge tendency in a lot of schools for the parents to drop the kids off. It's very convenient, etc. And to get the kind of behavioural change that you're talking about, Una, I think it does require more push and pull. So, rewarding people who change their behaviour, but also trying to push them in the right direction as well. So,
ESB were the sponsors, or still are the sponsors, of the energy segment of the An Taisce Green Schools initiative, and where we have looked at developing it to the next level has been, we also ran for 3 years with an engagement with Croke Park called Cool Green, which was about addressing the footfall of, well, the transport plans of people who'd be attending matches and trying to reduce that wider carbon issue. And where we were seeing real kind of added value engagement was when the clubhouse in the community was linking up with the school. And we were involved in a backseat way in facilitating engagements between children in sport and children in the community in school. And when a community, and we had 4 or 5 of them are still working very well, working together on different aspects of sustainability, I think you can get a real richness there, a real depth that spreads out across the community, and you touch people in a number of different ways, and that's very effective. And I suppose in terms of an ambition, it would be to extend something like the Green Schools programme, which is so very effective and very engaging, to all national schools and secondary schools throughout the country, would be one ambition.
Okay, I think we have time for one more question. Yeah, one.
I just make the point to anyone on the panel there that just the main gist of all these presentations seems to have centred on an urban environment, and I understand that it's where a lot of people will centre on a certain day, but if you even look out in outlying areas of Dublin towards more rural areas, Meath, for example, I think a lot of the cars that are clogging up the city are coming from there in the morning. So fair enough if we talk about Rathmines, I don't know how many people are driving to work from Rathmines. If we talk a bit further out, I think there's even a higher dependency on the car, even to get around locally. So I just wonder if there's any theory or thoughts on where that could go, or where we could reduce that dependency in the future.
Okay, fair point actually. I'd make a note about how our towns and cities have developed in the last 10 to 15 years. I come from Wexford actually, and I remember growing up in Wexford. You could pretty much walk and cycle everywhere. Most people did actually. That was the best way. The last couple of intercensuals, the last 2 intercensual periods, we've had an emptying out of not just the Dublins, the Limericks, the Galways, but also the Wexfords, the Ballinas's, the Castlebars. All of our towns have started to become less dense and more spread out. And I think we've created a big problem there. On the upside, somebody just asked about the Dublin Bikes programme. And if I was asked, is that the best transport initiative in the country? I'd say it isn't. I'd say the best transport initiative that we brought in during the boom years as well, and it's still a great success, is the Rural Travel Programme. It's a brilliant scheme. It's world class. And it does tremendous things in terms of social mobility and in terms of community cohesion. I think it's a fantastic, that's something that we can capitalize on. But we have the problem of making, people talk about retrofitting suburbs, but we certainly have to make our suburban development accessible in a healthy, active and mobile way. It's not impossible. There are very, very good examples. There's some models in cities like Toronto and Melbourne that, and even Zurich has low density parts that are well served by really well planned and really well organized public transport. So it can be done, but we've got a big challenge there, there's no doubt about it.
Okay, thank you very much, everyone. I think we leave it at that. I think there's certainly a lot of food for thought at this stage. I like the vision of Dublin becoming top of the ranks in terms of quality of life and how urban transport mobility can contribute towards that. I'd like to thank all of you for sharing your insight and your experience in that area. And so yeah, thank you very much. Great session.